Hello, please can you hear me?
Hi, hi.
I can
Yes,
hear you.
All right.
yes, please.
Please, do you have any questions so far? Hello? Do I
No question from me. Yes, continue.
All right. Now, I'm going to give us some theoretical aspects of on SQL to make us understand to some extent how we can make use of analysis using SQL. So we'll still have access to Anton, like I said, but then this is our first class. I'm sorry I'm not using my video because we don't really have light around here. So everywhere is somehow dark. Now, we have introduction to data. We have data sources. We have data types. We have data analysis, key toolkits, and the database management system, as well as communicating with the how DBMS. We have PostgreSQL. The installation procedure is, we are going to go through it, then have an hands-on on how you do the installation, probably during our live section. We'll be writing some SQL statement as well as identifying the primary and secondary key. SQL aggregation will be talked about, logical operations, special operations, temporary tables, case text statements, and date function. We will also be looking at joins. So what is data? The quantity, characters, or symbol in which operations are performed by a computer, which may be stored and transmitted in the form of electronic signal and recorded on magnetic or optical, mechanical recording media. That's Oxford Dictionary 2019 definition of data. Anything, almost anything we can see is data to someone else. Like I said, we have data around us. They are called raw data. It's when you know what you want to use it for or why you need it. That is when they become very useful. They become vital to what you want to do with them. Data is fact and statistics collected together for references or analysis. I've talked about that. The root word for data is datum, a Latin word meaning a piece of information or an assumption or premise from which inference may be drawn. What is a database? A database is an organized collection of structured information or data, typically stored electronically in a computer system. Now, what makes a data different from a database is this. A database has more information of similar record of data. It's like a compound storage for data. It is unlikely that you have a database. You may have a database that stores both text, images, but of course, they have to be similar in some ways. For instance, you won't have a database of a customer on sales merge with that of construction company or pharmaceutical company. You can see, you will agree with me that they are not the same. They are not even similar. The only thing you can have that may have a link, a relationship between them, is when you have another set of data in like a main database. But there must be a link between those two. Otherwise, you need to consider having separate databases for that, because they are not related. Please, I hope I'm communicating. I shared
Yes, ma.
I shared a link for the attendance earlier. Please, I've actually taken a few people's name. You can still go through it to confirm if okay, you are okay with the name selection to it. And those that have not done the ticking, they should please go ahead and check the appropriate name. Thank you. We say a database is usually controlled by a database management system. Like I was saying, once you have similar records of data or similar sets of data being merged together, you need to have a system that will help you manage it. For instance, you have to consider the availability of the database, where you want it to be available, from which time to what time. Then you need to talk about restricting or either granting access to anybody to modify it, which is not advisable. You need to have separate roles for different privileges. So when you are talking database, you have to think ahead of accounts, things like accounts, users, the type of users, the privileges you can grant on them, what they can do, can they add, can they just view, which is read only. There are three, or let me say four or five. You may need to be jotting down some of these things I'm sharing with you. Though I'm still going to make available this video on probably a few of my channels where you can watch them. But you won't find some of this little information that I'm sharing with you. That's the advantage of attending the live class. So now, there are five things you consider when dealing with data management and database management system. You consider read. There's what we call read only. There's what we call write. There's what we call read and write. There's execute. This execute has to do with programs or scripts to be run. So you have to use the right privilege for that particular user or for that particular database. Otherwise, anybody can just have access to it. It will not be restricted. A typical example of what I would say is our Google Sheet. You know, is a form of spreadsheet, just like Microsoft Excel. The same thing goes with Microsoft Excel. You can also perform a similar thing on Microsoft Excel. You know, there is this tab that shows shares, just like the way I shared the attendance list to you. I needed to make some settings available for me to be able to share to you so that you can edit it. In cases where I just grant view or viewer rights, it means I'm only granting the attendees uh, just read only. That is what read only does. You cannot edit it. The same way you want to download an image file using Word document, Microsoft Word, it's going to come out as read only. You just see some scrabbled text displaying on your screen that you don't even understand. You can't even say is this language. That is another typical example of a read only. So it's not something you see. It is some you may not see it as being read only, but it's general. There are general things we can easily pick as example of read only. Now, when you are saying write alone has to do with you being able to write, like you shared a blank template with somebody to fill for you. It means the person will not be able to alter the already written document, but the person will be able to update by making new entries into the template. That is what write does. I've talked about executable. It's been represented by exe, executable. Those are installable applications, installable scripts. They are just running things that you can, they are files that do some processing. That is what executable means. And you cannot assign executable to just a template that doesn't have any program embedded in it. It doesn't work that way. The only way it will work is when you embed it. You embed it in, for instance, you have a Word document or the Excel. Let me use Excel as an example. Excel is a very simple, open application that you can use to do so many things. It's not just restricted to you just doing data entry, for instance, or data cleaning. A lot of fields like construction, project management, they use Excel. The same thing with the programmers. So if I'm designing a form on Excel, that means I'm going to enable my developer mode. And for that, that means I will need to store that file as an executable file. An example of an executable file in Excel is when you save a file as XML, executable mark language or markup language. That is an example in Excel. How will you locate it? Is when you go to Excel and you open Save As. That is when you have things like that. Please, I hope I'm communicating.
Yes, you are, ma'am.
All right. So now, let me go back to now for read and write. Read and write privilege makes you have access to you being able to delete, modify, as well as update. That is what read and write does. That is the highest form, like a full control. When you say full control, you go for read and write. Back to the presentation. Data within the most common type of databases in operation today is typically modeled in rows and columns in the series of tables to make processing and data queries efficient. Now, we'll talk about data types. There are different types of data types. You have numeric. In some languages, they could be referred to as integer. You have numeric, you have character, you have screen, you have image. That's the media files, such as JPG, PNG, and the likes. You have the video. Those are MP4, AVI, and HD, like we have now for resolutions of 720 and above. So when you have a set of data known as data sets, it means you will first of all, the first thing you need to do is to translate it to rows and columns. Rows are usually horizontal, they are like record fields, while columns are attributes. They are attributes of a data set. For instance, If his data set is having name, is on the columns you need to set. Is it going to be a short name? Is it going to be a mixture of text and numbers? Is on columns you set that. So they are referred to as attributes. The rows are entries or values, as the case may be. So the data can then be easily accessed, managed, modified, updated, controlled, and organized. Most databases use structured query language for writing, querying data. Attributes of data, rows and columns. A row of data is data stored horizontally, while a column refers to data stored vertically. Data within the most common type of databases in operation today is typically modeled in rows and columns in a series of tables to make processing efficient. This way, data can then be easily accessed, managed, modified, updated, controlled, and organized. Most databases use SQL for writing and querying data. They have data collection. Data collection is the process of acquiring, collecting, extracting, and storing voluminous amounts of data, which may be in the structured or unstructured form, like text, video, audio, XML file, records, or other image files, used in later stages of data analysis. I've already talked about that. In some places, they will refer to data collection as data acquisition. They are still the same thing, or data extraction. Data collection is the initial step before starting to analyze the patterns or useful information in data. The data which is to be analyzed must be collected from different valid sources. The main goal of data collection is to collect information-rich data. Like I said, when you just have data all around you, even the vegetables we take, they are a form of data. For instance, you go to the market, you ask the market seller how many quantity of vegetable do you buy, at what price, how much do you sell for. Those are data. We don't see people using it much because of awareness. And aside from that, they may not really be open to it. For instance, someone doing a visibility study, the person will have to go one-on-one to the market women and ask them some of these questions. How long does it take you to sell your vegetable? What happens when you don't finish selling it? Do you make losses, more of losses than profits? That is data. So when you see we have data around us, we have different industries that require certain set of data. I want to digress a little. When you see trainings up and down, data analysis, sometimes we want to find out more. Is it data analysis on, for instance, SQL and Excel for manufacturing company, or for sales, or for the healthcare industry? They are not the same. Though they may pass through the same cycle of cleaning, of modeling, of eventually making decisions based on what you have gotten so far, but the techniques they use are sometimes different. For sales, when you are into sales, you have to start thinking of profits, income, revenue. There is this mathematical function that you need to learn more. For instance, DAX, DAX, you have to learn it very well if you want to be